you for showing up. And this is the final session for this program. There'll be more, I promise. All right, let's start and share my presentation. All right, so welcome to the Israel Nationall Trail, Shvil Israel, part 3. What are we going to talk about today? Review what we talked about so far, the last 2 sessions. We're going to talk about the trail, when it all started and up to this day, and why the trail is so important to me, and I would say to Israel as well. So first of all, just to start, there will be this kind of emoji or little microphone on the screen from time to time. Please, it says you can unmute yourself and talk. I will ask a few questions, and at the end, you'll have time to ask more questions. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please write it down in the chat. And Aaron or Jerry, if you can tell me if there's any questions, because I can't see the chat during the presentation, that would be great. And to start off with the goodie bag, I did a pickup off, and Benjamin already showed us that he's drinking the coffee. So inside the bag, you're gonna find Turkish coffee, a bisli, which is really Israeli snack. It's shaped like a pasta, like a penne pasta, and it's basically floured wheat snack. 2 more things inside, including, I'm sorry for the noise, including chalva, which are made up of sesame seeds, and mekupelet. It's kind of a rolled chocolate. It's a chocolate bar, really Israeli. If you want to make a really good hot chocolate, put it inside a mug, boil some milk, pour it over and mix. It's created really, really good hot chocolate. And yeah, that's all the stuff. It's a pakal shvil, and the idea was when you go out for the hike, for the trail, a lot of people do carry some of those stuff in their bag. I know for me, for myself, definitely gonna have Turkish coffee and some stove and a pot to make coffee on the way, and some halva. It's a really good source of energy, and it's really sweet and nice to eat. And bisli and mekupelet are also, you will find people walking with them, and they're really good. And one thing that I really found really nice is this text by Zev Vilnai. It's not a text, it's really a column saying the connection to Israel. And he says, I believe that there is no better way to feel the connection to Israel than to walk in the length and breadth, to cross its valleys, to climb the summit of the mountains, to tour the land, even the most remote parts. Only when you tour the country by foot in the fragment landscapes and see with your own eyes its ancient remains and its newest settlements, you feel the true connection to Israel, and you're being a native of the land, of this land. And this text is just found myself really connected to in the aspect of the Israeli Trail, because you do walk the country and you do see the culture and everything, and I'll talk about it more later. So let's start then reviewing what we know. We know Israel is located in the Middle East. It's at the crossroad of 3 big continents, and it's located in Asia. It's really, really tiny, so tiny, there's a lake bigger than Israel here in the US. It's Lake Michigan. If you want to go from Elat, from the southest point to Metula to the northest point, it will take you 5.5 hours by car. That equals to 323 miles you'll have to drive. We did put a puzzle together of Israel landscape, which is Judea and Samaria, the Negev, the Jordan Rift Valley, the coastal plain, the Arava, the Golan Heights, the Galilee, the Emek Israel, Elat, Carmel, and the coastal lowland. So much in one small country, and we assembled a puzzle. Going on next, we divided Israel into 3 parts, so we'll make it more simple. We took the north, the center, and the south, such as the Israeli Trail does. White for north, blue for center, and orange for south. We know when we walk the trail, if orange is higher, we're going south. And if white is higher, we're heading north. So easy to navigate. We know the trail itself is about 1,000 kilometers, equals to 622 miles. And the trail is divided into 56 different sections, which means you can choose a different section and walk the trail, not in one go, but in a tiny bit every time. those different sections, and you can also, those sections can be divided into a few hikes. There's some going along the shoreline, some going in the middle of the desert, some are climbing a mountain. So many different, 56 of them. If you want to go in one go, it will most likely take you about 2 months of 622 miles in total, which is 12.5 miles per day. Quite a lot, but you can do it. And we look on the beauty of Israel all across Israel, what you see across the trail, all the rivers, the mountains, the forest, the deserts, the cities, everything. We talked with my friend and did an interview with a close friend of mine who walked the trail. We heard some stories and some funny moments, some funny parts. We heard how was it to walk and to get adjusted to wake up so early in the morning, stop walking every single day. That wasn't easy, but it's fun. It's part of the experience to be exhausted in the first few days until you get in shape of doing that. We'll learn how to sleep in the desert when there's nobody to host them or they can't find any better place to sleep. Build up a tent or either open the backpack and sleep. We heard more funny stories about more people he met along the trail, including this German guy who just crossed their way to travel the trail. So how did it all started? How did this idea came to life of creating such a trail in Israel? So Abraham Tamir, who was a journalist and an outdoor man, and he was inspired from the Appalachian Trail in the US. He hiked this trail and really felt the need of creating something along those lines. He passes the idea to Uri Dvir. He was the director of the committee of marking the Israeli trails and creating them. It took 16 years from the idea to the trail to be opened. And in 1995, they opened the Israel Nationall Trail. And just for you to know, the Committee of Marking the Trails in Israel are responsible for plan and mark hiking trails in Israel, publishing maps in a scale of 1 to 50,000. And all year long, the committee maintains the trails and the marking along the 6,213 miles of trails, including the 622 miles of the Israel Nationall Trail. So yes, there's a lot of trails. Some of them cross with the Israel Nationall Trail, some of them not. But there are many, many. Well, 6,230 miles of trails in Israel. So the outline of the Israel Trail change from time to time, from year to year, and because of all kind of different reasons. For example, they build Route 6 in Israel, which is crossing Israel, and it's a toll road, and they have to move the trail a little bit so it won't collide each other. So they won't walk on the middle of the road. And I think the biggest change that happened in 2019 when they moved the trail to the Dead Sea as well and Masada. And I want to show you a piece of an article that they did on the news in Kan 11, which is a news channel in Israel. I will speak along because it is in Hebrew, but I muted the sound, so it will be music and me speaking and explaining what are they talking about. And if you do read Hebrew, there is subtitles. So they connected the trail who connect the Dead Sea and Masada. And they're going out to mark this part of the trail. And from here now on, they split the outline of the trail into different two lines. You can either pick to go to the city of Arad, which is more of a city, or you can go to the Dead Sea. And this is how they mark the things. This is how they mark the marking. And they come here and they visualize how they think the hikers will see the marking and what they will think in order to, where's my next point and how do I walk from here? And this is the idea in their head. This will be the first time it will get to the Dead Sea and to the Masada. And it's called the Fort Pit area. And it's adding about 50 kilometers, which are about, I would say, around 22 miles, if I'm not mistaken, 23 miles. So he explained right now how they mark the trail. And this is the mark, the orange, the blue, and the white. They added up 4 different segments, 4 different parts, which is Nachal Tzelim, Tzelim River, Masada, and Bokek, the Dead Sea, and 2 more. And you will see this. This is how they mark it, and right in the middle of the street or in the middle of the road. And they put a big mark if you want to go to the old outline or to the new one. And people choose differently, choose where they want to go and what they want to do. Thousands of Israelis walking the Israeli Trail every year. And now they can stop in the desert and go inside the Dead Sea and see Masada. Another special thing about the Israel Nationall Trail. In the 25 years of existence, since 1995, the Israel Nationall Trail won glory all over the world when picked to one of the top 10 best tracks in the National Geographic magazine, along of the Himalaya track and the Appalachian, I'm sorry, mispronounce it probably, which actually was inspired by to build a trail and to mark this trail. In 2013, the INT Brother was announced. It is for bicycles, and it was announced by Israel President Shimon Peres. So you can bike pretty much the same line of the Israel Nationall Trail. If you don't like hiking, you can always bike. In 2015, they recorded all of the trail and uploaded to Google Street View. It was the longest trail record ever and the first capture of a trail that crossed an entire country. It was a collaboration between Israel and Google. And you can actually go online and open up maps. Take the little guy on the over here and drop it. See, it says Israel Nationall Trail start and end. Drop it right here. And you can actually start walking the trail using Google Maps or Google Street View. And you'll see people along the way. You can see different structures and different things, and of course, taking photos like this guy doing right here. And this is an awesome way to explore a little bit of Israel right now, absolutely, if you can go. And in general, if you want to plan your hike and want to see how's the landscape look like and what you can expect. So it's all on Google Street View, and I'll absolutely send you the link to it so you can always look on yourself and see what's there. Another thing they did recently, because of the corona, they uploaded all the maps and all the parts of the trail itself. So it is in Hebrew, most of them, but the map is in English. And if you click on any one of them, you can download the map in English and the legend in English as well. And it's basically tell you in Hebrew, but the map is in English, and you can open it up and see the map of the trail. So easy, so amazing. So you can get the sense of how does it look like, where it's crossed. And you can see right here, you walking right in the middle of Tel Aviv, you walking on the shoreline, and through entire Israel, through entire the middle point in Israel, you're going next to Rosh Ayin, Yevat HaShlosha, Far Sirkin, all of those different places, all of those different cities and settlements in Israel. So back to our presentation. Now is the time to talk about the trail angels. Forget they are in the trail. There might be the most amazing people you will meet along the trail. The kind-hearted people who will open their home to the hiker of the Israel Nationall Trail. What's so special about them? That they will do it absolutely for free in order to contribute your journey. And they will offer you either a bed for a night, a warm meal, a shower, and usually much more. And just a little story about one angel that you can meet along a trail. It's in the city of Arad. Family name is Shif. And this is a tent where they host the people, the hikers. There's equipment, there is a library which they built brand new, and people can come, all the hikers can come and pick a book if they want to. They can take it, they can put books inside. They put up this tent in the memory of their son who died in a car accident 23 years ago. And this tent were over 10,000 people all over the world going through. Everyone who coming to their house, write something in this book and get picture with them. Whenever a lone hiker walks inside the house, if it's on Friday night and he's lonely, they won't let him to sit outside. They will join them for a Shabbat dinner. Right now, she's getting a phone call from another hiker who want to get to be hosted there, and it's basically him saying, "Hey, can I stay there?" She's asking if he's coming along or with company. He says alone. She says, "Yes, come." No further introduction, nothing more. And how amazed that the idea that you're just gonna host someone who just called you, say, "Hey, can I come?" and you say yes. Such a hospitality, such an open door idea. And this is why they call trail angels. And you can trace it back even to the Bible, to Genesis. In Genesis 18, there's the story of Abraham and the three angels. And if I read it down in Hebrew, and I'll explain it later in English, I do like the Hebrew more. ויישא עיניו וירא, והנה שלושה אנשים ניצבים עליו. וירא וירץ לקראתם, מפתח האוהל, והשתחוו ארצה. ויאמר אדוני, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, אל נא תעבור מעל עבדך. ייקח נא מעט מים, ורחצו רגליכם, וישענו תחת העץ. ויקחה פת לחם, וסעדו לבכם. אחר תעברו, כי על כן עברתם אל עבדכם, ויאמרו כן תעשה, כאשר דיברת. וימהר אברהם מעלה, אל שרה, ואמר מארי, 3 שאים קמח, סולת לושי, ועשי עוגות. And to think this hospitality, this idea of him just sitting in his tent, seeing 3 complete strangers walking by, and the first thing he does is offer them a shelter and some food and a shower. And this concept go way back to the Bible, to Genesis, to the way back, and people do it throughout these days. And trail angels and the story of Abraham and the 3 angels are pretty much on the same concept, on the same idea of people opening their home to a complete stranger. And this is incredible. And another, maybe more newer text or few sentences by Nathan Alterman. You will never know if the people who pass you will remain in your heart. But there are people, it's enough they pass by you and you thank them for hours. And I think he's trying to say, you will never know the people you'll meet. Always smile, always be nice, because you never know who will affect your life and who's not. Because you can meet someone and spend an entire week with him and you forget about them in a week. But you can meet someone for a quick conversation or a cup of coffee and he will remain in your heart forever. And this is the power of people. This is the power I believe the trail angels also believe in when they open the house. You will never know who you meet. But if someone needs help and someone is coming and taking this journey upon himself to go and hike and see the land, they're there to help and they want to be a part of it in any other way. And you can find those people in so many places along the trail. You can find them up north in the desert or in the middle of Israel. There'll be people of different colors, of different backgrounds, of different religions, but they're there. And the sole purpose is to contribute to your journey. So for a bit more of a personal aspect, it's the favorite place in the trail for me will be Mount Arbel. This is Mount Arbel. It's located in the Lower Galilee, right next to the Sea of Galilee. It's in the eastern Lower Galilee. On the way to Tiberias, it's a mountain cliff towards up, offering a breathtaking view of the Jordan Valley, Sea of Galilee, the Golan Heights, Mount Hermon, and the Galilee. This is the Arbel Cliff, which all of those areas we covered up on the first session. And there's a lot. Some will say it's the most iconic viewpoint over the Sea of Galilee, and it is beautiful. On the hike, you will visit an ancient Arbel fortress built inside a rock, and it is marvelous to see. And I won't spoil the story behind it because I do want to encourage you to explore a little bit about it for yourself, if it is to go to Israel and hike when it's possible again, or if it to just Google it up, see what it's really about, what's the story behind, because there is so much stories and so much history along this trail. And just a short clip to kind of get the sense and the power of this place. For me, this place, I get to know it, and when I was in, I think, middle school, it was part of a school trip. We went there, we hike it. It's not really complicated. It's really easy going down the cliffside. It's super easy, to be honest, to do it. You do need to climb a little bit, but not like just use some ropes that attach to the rock. It's not really hard. And this place continued to accompany me along my life. So those two photos with me, no beard, no hair, during the army, had a few days off, took two of my good friends and went for a hike. And this photo, it is me in 2018 when I was in a program, pre-military program called Mechina, and we did a hike, and we had to, me and my friend had to create a hike for one day that we're gonna do for the entire group, and which is this mountain. And we went to travel to make sure we know everything, we know where the places are, the right path, kind of prepared ourselves. And funny thing happened, you do see we both wear coats and really zipped up all the way. It was a really windy day, so windy that we get up there. They told us, we're sorry, you can't go up to the cliff, like to the highest point, because we're afraid you're gonna fall off because of the wind. So we had to take a different path and walk along it. And it was a strong wind, and I felt like I'm shifting a little bit walking. And I was much heavier back then, and I had a giant backpack on my back. So it was super windy, but it was so much fun, and we had a good time. And this mountain always give me kind of peace and quiet. The view, the hike, I just fell in love with this mountain, and it's just kind of my quiet place. So now I want to ask you, why do you think the trail is so important? Please feel free to unmute yourself and either write down in the chat or unmute.
I just want you to talk.
Because you can have a personal relationship with the land.
Amazing, thank you.
Gabrielle, maybe because it's the same trail you're walking, it's the same trail the Jewish ancestor got to walk in the biblical land. So you're sharing the history with thousands of Jews over thousands of years, and that makes it very special. It's the only place in the world you can do that.
Amazing answer. Thank you, Aaron. So I'll now shift a little bit and talk why it's so important. And what I try to create here is the bubble of media, the bubble that the news channel created for us about Israel and about basically anything else in the world. We only see what sells more, what's give the companies more rating and more profit. And it's not a bad thing for them, because that's the idea of a business, to make profit. But you can't really believe everything you see on the media. And for me, here's come the trail. And what's important about it is when you see things with your own eyes, you really see them. You get to explore it with your feet, with your eyes, with your senses. And walking this trail gets you to see Israel. But let me ask you first, what people ask or told you about Israel? In the idea of they've never been there before, and like they telling you, yeah, I heard about Israel, this, and this. Could anyone share any moment that happened to him? Feel free to unmute yourself or write down in the chat box.
I'm not sure. I don't understand your question. Can you repeat it?
Absolutely, I'm sorry. Let me
you.
make more clear and give an example as well.
Thank
So
you.
for me, for example, a lot of people always ask and say, hey, do you ride camels to school in order to get around? And that's a question and a say I heard so many times over the past probably 23 years of my living from people outside of Israel that never been there. So if any kind of this moment happened to you, or even if people say, yeah, you live in a war zone and soldiers are out in the streets and you have to be in a curfew hour and you have to get home by a certain time, those all kind of things people will say, and unfortunately will say that. Anyone had a moment of...
That's
Yes.
the most common question. Someone already asked me, well, it can't be too safe to walk the Israel Trail, right? Because it's going to be terrorists and such.
Exactly. And this was exactly my point of people not knowing and not realizing what Israel looked like, or essentially what any place in the world looks like because of the media. And Israel is well known for having both sides of the media really trying to see different viewpoints. But once you walk the trail and once you get into Israel and using this trail, you get to see different people in Israel, different groups of people from different backgrounds, from different religions, different colors, and you will see all of them. You see all of them going to the beach or going in the street or sitting in a restaurant, one next to each other. You'll see soldiers up in the street with a guitar, with balloons because someone have a birthday, going to the Western Wall to pray, or just in the middle of the street, walking and doing day-to-day life. And it's kind of absurd, but for me to see someone with a gun in the middle of the street is normal. Like I will see soldiers, and I try to find one of the kind of most iconic and absurd photos, but I couldn't. It's a girl who is a soldier in a bikini in the beach with an M16 on her back. And this is kind of like absurd to think of if you never lived or visited Israel, but this is our reality. And part of this trail is going next to military bases, and you absolutely see soldiers because they're all around Israel, not controlling or talk to you. They just live their life. They're either heading home or just having a break or just going to the mall. You'll see people all over the place. You'll see scooters like everyone. You see people with masks, of course, because it's Corona. But you'll see Israel, because Israel is, some will say a melting pot, some will say a collaboration of different ethnicities, but it is. You'll see so many different people and you'll hear so many different stories while you're there. And you get to realize not everything you see on the news is correct, because mostly you will see the extreme groups. You will see what sells, what's give the news channel rating, what's appealing to watch. Because I heard this story a long time ago, and it was like really, really funny, because they talk about Switzerland and they said nothing happened in Switzerland. So one of the cities in the news was this big article about the new flowers that planted along their lines, along the roads. And this is what happened. And I was like, okay, that's boring, so boring. Who wants to hear about the new flowers along the road? I want to hear some people doing extreme things and like something happening. But those things are not always the truth. This is just one angle of the camera. And if you walk the trail, you will see people in the kibbutzim working the fields, and you will see Ethiopian on the street, because they're people, because they're part of Israel, because all of those people are just part of Israel and part of who we are. And you will see the city, you will see the Bedouins, how they live in the south on the right bottom corner, with those tent houses, and you will see kind of the kibbutzim and living more of a village life. And you'll see all of that along the trail. You will see all of those different aspects of Israel. You will see the Dead Sea, the Red Sea, so many springs and streams, so much more. You'll see the land for itself. So I encourage you to go to explore it. I encourage you to go and to see Israel throughout your own eyes, to see the people, to see the story, to see the history, because there's so much more, to see where we came from and where are we going to, what's ahead of us, and all the innovation, all the technology, all of the ideas, all of the developments, all of the good, because there is a lot of good. And now I'll stop talking and let you ask the questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. So you said you had said to me last time you would suggest if one stretch would be the sea to sea stretch from the Mediterranean to the Sea of Galilee, which I guess from the map looked like it was sections 9 through 14. You can verify if that's correct. And I guess if you were to hike from the Lake Tiberias down to the Mediterranean Sea, that'd be downhill. The other way would be uphill, right?
It's kind of, yeah. It's not. You'll go up and down hills anyway. Like, it's not necessarily going to be so much different.
And is that starting at Mount Arbel? If you started at
it's not starting at the mountain itself, but it will cross it. And definitely there's so much more stories to tell behind those different parts. And some places that you will want to go, some different religion places of different religions, for example, require you to wear long pants. And that's something to keep in mind when you hike. For example, we always use the hiking pants when you can unzip the leg part underneath your kneecap. And this is an amazing solution for those kind of stuff, because you do want to respect everyone, but still be able to hike. And this is kind of like the things you will see so much more. Like, I barely touch the tip of the fork here about what you will see along the trail, because each person you will meet will have a different story to tell, and each place you will see have a different history behind it.
I have another question. The most remote part, I guess, has to be the southern part. How many days, I mean, would you be hiking several days where you would be out, in sort of what we would call wilderness? Or how many days would you be in real wilderness? Would that most be in the southern part?
Probably will be most on the southern part and the south of Israel. It is the largest part of Israel. But I'm not, like, if you choose to be in kind of the wilderness and alone, it's your choice. But if you do want to see people, you're definitely going to see people along the trail, another group of hiker, school doing a school trip, or pretty much you will definitely going to see people. But if you choose to go alone, you will be alone. I hope that's answered the question.
I think I see Bobby and Harold here, and they would like to know a very controversial question about Israel, which is, where would you get your best hummus? And where would you get your best falafel? Because when we go back on a mission to Israel, I understand Bobby and Harold are going to lead us in a meal, and they would like to try the best hummus and falafel. There is not a well-known place, but it's a secret jewel. And also, Bobby says the first shawarma is on him.
So I would say, for me, because there is a lot of a lot of argument about the best hummus and the best places of those in Israel. For me, I would choose in Jaffa. It's called forget the name. It's 1 second. It's at the tip of my tongue. I used to talk Abu Hassan. That's the name of the place. Abu Hassan. And if you want me to give you the actual details about it, please email me or call me. I'll be happy to help. Have the best hummus, and it's experience by itself to go sit in the restaurant, order something, and your waiter just shout out to the kitchen what he needs, and it's out in a minute. Best falafel, I would say it's on King George Street in Tel Aviv. It's called Falafel Herzl, and what's special about it, it's only have falafel with either, I think you have salad, pickles, and onions to put inside, and tahini, of course. It's called 6 shekels. That's about $2. And you can have half a pita. You only have a full pita, and there's always a line. Always, you will see a line there. And it's really, really good, and it's really just an experience to go there. Best shawarma, I'll go to Haifa, and the place is called Shawarma Emil. And you need to get there early because they do have one shawarma roll, or I don't know how to call it, one shawarma basically. And when it's done, they close. So sometimes you can get there at 1 p.m. and then it's all gone and it's closed. So make sure you get there early enough. So I say around noon will be a great time to get there. We do have another question from Renan. How do you find the trail angels? Well, you can find their list pretty much everywhere. You can Google up Israel Nationall Angel Trails, and I'll find the link and set it in the email as well. It's super easy to contact. There's so many groups, so many people, and basically, 99% sure that you can walk the trail without knowing anyone. And on the first, like my friend said, in the first hour, they met already 2 people that walk another month with them. You'll meet people, and they will know something, and they will know a place to go stay, and they will know a trail angel they heard about, because there are so many people walking at the same time.
So Dina's question is there any events that are held in locations along the trail, like concert or like anything, like do they celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut special in a special place or anything like that?
You can, I don't know if it's exactly on the trail itself, but definitely along the sides of the trail, because Israel is a small place, so you can always go to different places. There's a festival in the Negev called Indie Negev. It's a music festival. But honestly, that's a different trip. That's to say for another time to explore this part, because I would say once you committed to walk the trail, you want to go inside of it. You don't want to see the big shows or the big things. You want to go a bit smaller. You want to look inside of you and around the people next to you. I hope that answer.
Yeah, that's great. Is there enough to connect you from public transportation if you're doing one section and you want to skip 3 and then go on public transportation and go to the next section?
I'll say yes, mostly. It will be easier in the center of Israel. The public transportation is much better there. In the north, it's a bit harder. Like it will take more time for the buses to arrive. But in the south, it's the worst, I would say. There's not a lot of public transportation, but you can always find people with a car or either rent a car for a day or so. And I promise you, if you do prepare to go hiking, you can post pretty much on Facebook and people reach out and say, hey, yeah, I'm doing this part today and I'm with a car. You can tag along.
So what I'm really getting at is that C to C stretch. Can you get public transportation to start, you hike it, and then you get public at the end?
Absolutely, yeah, you can do that, absolutely. It's not a big deal, and you can also, Tiberias is a big city, and it's really easy. You're going along settlements as well, so it's really, really easy to get along there.
A great question from Harold and Sandy is that what do you need to put on your giant backpack? What are the must-haves when you're about to start the walk?
I think the most important are so a great sentence one of my best friends' dad told me and him when we went hiking is always to remember you're carrying, you're gonna hike with it. It's on your back for the entire trail, what you put inside the bag. So I would say sleeping bag for sure, because if you don't really need a tent, it's kind of like doing an expression alert in the US, a glamping. So you just need a sleeping bag, honestly, good shoes. And it's not even inside a backpack, but good shoes are super, super important because you do walk a lot and that's all your weight. And the backpack, a good backpack, it's important. I think too, food is kind of easy to get. We once walked and we didn't want to bring a lot of food with us, so we brought flour and water and a giant tuna can. And what we did, we created kind of a bread because we took the tuna can, ate out the tuna, flip it over a campfire, and kind of use it as a heating surface to make the bread. So be creative with the idea of food. Don't be too spoiled. Don't get a lot of energy bars and stuff like this. That's sometimes not always the best to get. So it's not. Yeah, I saw the follow-up questions about the sleeping bags and rain and scorpions. So I would say rain is not really expected. Do check that before. But if it is rainy, you can always find shelter and either ask some trail angel to host you and plan ahead a little bit, check the weather. And it's not supposed to be rainy. It's really not that rainy in Israel generally. And if it is rainy, it's not gonna be so much.
So before
It's gonna be really.
Adina's question, there's another one about do parents send you packages along the way? Are there like mail stations where you can send something? So when you get there, you have a surprise package from your family or friends.
Not really. It's not really, because you do commit to the hike. You kind of like detach yourself from the world and go hiking. So it's not. You can find packages, and it's quite easy to, if you're from Israel, it's really easy for your family to drive over and just drop something. There's not really package stations, and honestly, post in Israel is not the best in the moment because everything happened, and I think it will get time after things will get better with Corona. It will get time for the post to get better. So I won't recommend sending packages because they're probably gonna get lost or delayed. We're not used to 2 days delivery like you do here. Usually when you order something, yeah, it will take about 2, 3, 4 weeks will be kind of the average time for us to get a package, I would say. And there wasn't one thing about the scorpions. So usually they won't go inside your sleeping bag if it's fully zipped. I never heard any story of that, but always when you take your boots in the morning, make sure you just flip them over and kind of like move them to see if anything falls out. Mosquitoes, there is the mosquitoes thing that you put on your skin that reject them. You can, I don't know if it's not a thing here?
Yeah, mosquito.
It is? Okay. Yeah, so that's something that's like.
It is, it's just gross.
It is, but you're gonna hike for
You're
gonna hike for a few days. You're gonna be gross anyway.
You're roughing it.
And then question, well, more of a suggestion of Adina was if you would consider in the future to do a session about Israeli music.
Oh, absolutely. That's something I already thought of doing. And yeah, that's absolutely coming up. And there's a few more things coming up. In January, it's going to be something about photography contest, but not in the idea you think of, not of like being a photographer right now and going out and shoot photos. It's a bit different. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be Zikaron Basalon, going to be in the end of January. It's a really interesting concept with the Holocaust Memorial Day. we have, and it's going to be really interesting stories, and there's going to be much more to come up. And stay tuned. Please read the emails. I know there's a lot of them. I get them too. Facebook, always a good place to find more things and more events.
And then we're gonna put your email, so if anybody has a suggestion, they can send you an email, and in that.
Absolutely, feel free to email me. Yeah.
That's all the questions that I have on the chat.
Can I ask a question? It's Elaine Langer. Are you going to send us a recording of this session?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great, thank
I think you were going to list some information about that, looking at the trail on Google.
Yeah, I will
Okay,
send
good.
all of the information I told about. You're gonna have all the recordings of everything, and it's gonna be in one email.
Thank you. Good.
If you post the email again, it was on so quickly that some of us Altacakas couldn't record it.
Harold,
It's still in the
I'll send
chat.
you an email.
How about just putting his email in the email that we're all going to get?
Yes, that's easy too.
So if there's no more questions, thank you so much for showing up. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed and learned something.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.